We have a presentation and panel which will enable you to join us on a virtual cruise around some surprising super yacht destinations. And today I would like to just introduce our moderator, and he will introduce his panelists in turn. So we have Carlos Miquel here, who has been working for South American super yacht support since 2015. Welcome, Carlos. His company is a full concierge agency serving Chile, Argentina, Peru, and Uruguay, with the main emphasis being Patagonia and the Antarctica. The company provides logistical support for super yachts visiting Antarctica. Carlos is also the co-founder of Patagonia Antarctica Yacht Charters, who specialize in locally available crude charters. So Carlos, I'm going to make you a co-host so that you can share your presentation with us. Okay. And off you go.
Okay, good morning, Lorna and Allison, and also Rob and Tim, and to the whole audience, good morning. It's a pleasure to be here. Let me share my screen so that we will go through on a beautiful journey to 4 different locations. And let me make sure that the technology works.
Excellent. We have that, Carlos. I think you just need to enlarge it a little.
Yeah, that's what I'm trying.
Sorry, I'm jumping the gun.
No, please do. There we go.
That's it. There we are. Well done.
Okay, so step 1 accomplished. Good morning, Rob. Good morning, Tim. I would like to introduce to the audience, for those who don't know these 2 gentlemen who work for EYOS Expeditions. They actually created EYOS Expeditions. EYOS is one of the leading companies providing expedition services in the whole world, mostly to private yachts and vessels, but they've also worked with some other type of expeditions, and they've achieved several world firsts and world records. Rob himself, he's an expedition leader and consultant, and he has planned and executed deep dives to the Titanic, to the Bismarck. They lie at about 4,500 meter depth, and was also involved with a yacht that they helped design, Lucia, and for the recovery and search for the Air France flight that went down in the Atlantic many years ago. And as recent as 2019, he was on the 5 Deeps expedition. He was the leader planning, which was an expedition that over 10 months went to the 5 oceans and dove in the deepest part between 5,500 to 11,000 meter depth. So that's really amazing. Tim, who's his partner and co-founder, he started in this business, I think, back in 1994, Tim, if I'm not mistaken. That's right. And you're from England, and you have a degree in ocean sciences, involved with boating since very, very young. And now you've been in this business for over 25 years and partnering with Rob to visit some of the most remote locations in the world and bring amazing experiences to the guests that embark along with you. So welcome. Thank you for being part of the panel. And with that, just to give you an idea where we're going to travel today, first, Rob is going to tell us about PNG, Papua New Guinea. Then we will travel north to the Northwest Passage. Tim will enlighten us there to show us some really amazing pictures. And then Rob and I will take you to Patagonia and Antarctica. So let's get started, Rob, and I'll give you control.
Yes, control.
So please, you should be able to control the presentation yourself now. Hope technology is on our side.
You're going to have to do it, Carlos. It won't advance for me.
Okay, just want to request quickly from your side, see if that works. Otherwise,
make you a co-host here, Rob. I don't know if that's going to work.
Okay.
Yeah, I think you should be a co-host. Now try it again. That, I didn't like the sound of that.
well,
let me request remote control. I'm requesting it now, Carlos.
Okay, and I'm approving you, so otherwise we will go to plan B. Okay, so now we just need to enlarge it again, and now you should have control, hopefully, because you did do something to the screen. There we go.
Okay. Great. Well, thank you, everybody. Please forgive me, it's extremely early here, but great to be joining you from very dark Massachusetts at the moment. I grew up in Papua New Guinea. I speak the languages of Melanesia, which I learned as a child. It seems far away as autumn falls here, but it is the most wonderful place. I often say to people, it's the most stunning place you've never heard of. A little bit about EYOS. We're well known to many of the people in the audience because we have provided expeditions for so many vessels over the years. Over 1,200 expeditions now for vessels ranging between 35 and almost 200 meters, running about 60 expeditions a year in a normal year, all over the world, but mainly to the more difficult places, polar, temperate, and tropical. I think what sets us apart from in the industry is our authenticity. We have a pretty small team that we handpick because they are true experts in their particular region of speciality. You know, we're focusing on Papua New Guinea today, so I threw in 3 images. I mean, I've lived in Papua New Guinea for 15 years. I've worked there for the United Nations for 4 years. I've run over 50 expeditions there. Ange in the centre shot is from Papua New Guinea, and Mike on the right has lived and worked in PNG. So when you go to a country or to a region, to a place with us, that's a sort of level of authenticity that you get. Onto the place itself, you know, it's just to the north of Australia. It's part of the Melanesian chain, which comprises the Solomons and Vanuatu, spanning about 1,500 miles across the South Pacific. Papua New Guinea itself is the eastern part, or the right-hand side of that big island. The left-hand side, the western side, is Irian Jaya, which is occupied by Indonesia. But Papua New Guinea itself is a sovereign state, and it comprises the mainland, which sort of looks like a long dragon's tail, and the 4 main islands that are off to the north of it. It's about the size of the UK, all in all. And when you think of Papua New Guinea, you think of these wonderful anthropological sites which take you back through the millennia. So why would you go to Papua New Guinea? Why would you suggest to the boss that you should head somewhere you've never heard of? Well, I just wanted to run through the key highlights for the country. And the first I've already touched on, which is this super vibrant culture. It's a nation of 850 languages. Fully a quarter of the world's spoken languages originate from Papua New Guinea. And these are people who have carried their culture with them in these languages right through perhaps as long as 50,000 years. And so it's a nation that's got a foot in the Stone Age and a foot in the Space Age, and everybody is somewhere in the middle and trying to find their way forward. It's a country of great surprises. Even when you see something like this lady walking home from the garden at the end of the day, if you get close and look in the bilim, the bag that she's carrying on her back, she's carrying her child as the generations before her have. When you look at the faces of Papua New Guinea, you can't help but consider that you are somewhere far, far away from your own home. This is a place where culture is not on display. culture is alive and it absolutely pervades every moment of the day. The images for photographers are absolutely stunning and like nowhere else on Earth. This is the binding fire dance. This is a man dressed in dry grass running through flames. It's not a stunt. It's completely authentic. They will do this for hours and hours and hours until this massive fire is actually stamped out. It's part of a ritual that goes back tens of thousands of years. And although we understand the story behind the ritual, we don't really understand how it began. So for anybody visiting Papua New Guinea, you are going to be stepping back in time. I often make the joke, this is a yacht crew that went there without our advice, but no, these are the bones of ancestors who have been put away and on display so that the dead are never far away. They're not kept separately, they're kept under the house where they can be close. As anybody who's studied diving will know, Papua New Guinea is the epicenter of the Coral Triangle. It's the area of diving between the Austro-Pacific area and Australasia. So this collision of biospheres gives this amazing biodiversity under the water. If you've got a helicopter, then you are in for a great time. Papua New Guinea has very, very few roads. Everybody either walks or takes an aircraft. But if you have a helicopter, you can start to explore and in a very short amount of time be in places, meeting people that may not have seen outsiders for a very long time, if indeed at all. It's almost the perfect place for helicopter safaris. If you want to go overland and get up into the highlands, then we often do that. We do it for people who want to go bird watching, for people who want to go hiking, for people who really believe that they are reincarnations of Indiana Jones. But also, you have to consider that the island of New Guinea has a quarter of the world's equatorial ice. So if you're a climber or you want to experience the nation from the snowfields all the way down to the very humid coasts, then getting into the overland areas is really, really cool. Papua New Guinea is thought to host somewhere between 5 and 7% of the world's biodiversity. If you are into nature, then this is the place for you. The local people have been living in harmony with nature for, as I say, perhaps as long as 50,000 years, and everything is on display. If you're a World War II history buff, then this is one of the hot spots for spotting war material, both in the water. Here is a Japanese Zero in a shallow lagoon. You can easily just hop in there and snorkel around and see the wreck. The deeper they are, the better the condition they are in the water. On land, it's wherever there's good forest cover, the better the condition of the wreck. But if we actually do take a lot of people there specifically to look at World War II items, often because they have a connection to the conflict back in the 1940s. I think for me, the greatest thing about Papua New Guinea is it's the warmest welcome you will ever receive. These are people who, as I say, have 850 language groups, thousands and thousands of clans. They have a craving, a curiosity to meet outsiders and to get to know them, to show hospitality. Everywhere you go, you are greeted by these really genuine smiles, this fascination with who are you, where are you from, who is your family, and what are you all about? And to sit and spend a few minutes looking at digital images on a camera is always great fun. It is by far the friendliest nation that I've ever worked in, and I've been to a few now. What we can do for you is that we can help with your itinerary planning. Generally, you need at least sort of 10 days, but you can spend up to 6 weeks cruising around Papua New Guinea. We can help with the guiding, getting you ashore to meet the chief, to discuss payment of reef fees, to watch cultural events, or sing-sings as they're called, and to keep an eye on sort of cultural mores, I guess, because if you keep in with the culture, then you could not be in a safer place on Earth. We handle all in-country logistics. We work with a little company, Melanesian Luxury Yacht Services, which provide in-country provisions and port agencies. It's something that we started together because there wasn't anything else available at the time. We always suggest that we have somebody on board to help with the translation, interpretation, and general guiding to actually lead your journey through the country. We basically seek to be a one-stop shop. We know that going to a very new place is often quite stressful for captains, and so that's our role, is to relieve that stress. I've suddenly jumped to the main screen, Carlos. I don't know why.
Okay, I'll advance for you.
Can you do that?
Yeah, yes, I just did, but I'm not sure if there's an internet issue. Hopefully not.
I only have a couple of slides to go.
Yeah, let me start sharing again. There seems to be an issue. Can you see Suri now?
I do not, but I'll take your word for it that it's there. Can the audience see it?
I can't see it here. I've got a yacht.
You know, this image of Suri in the north of the country is an example of what you can expect. You know, these vast areas where you won't see anybody at all unless you choose to. And when you choose to, you'll find these warm, welcome smiles of the local Melanesian people. Next one, please, Carlos.
Yeah, I just did. When to go?
I don't see that. So when to go, I mean, traditionally when I was a kid, we were told that the season to avoid is Christmas to Easter. That's the time when tropical storms can be expected. The reality is the world has changed a lot since I was a kid. Virtually any time is good to go to Papua New Guinea, but the time of best weather is outside of that time. So if you are after April and before December, you're going to have a good time. The Papua New Guinea is on the way home from the America's Cup in New Zealand. It makes an ideal cruise destination if you are wanting to bypass Australia and simply leave New Zealand and head up to Asia. You're virtually going right through the Melanesian chain. So I hope that you will give Papua New Guinea some consideration.
Okay, Rob, that was a truly amazing little journey, and some stunning pictures. I've never been to that part of the world, so hopefully one day I'll be able to go, maybe go together. And thank you very much for this presentation. Next we have Tim. Tim, I believe you're already able to control the screen and you are on mute, so.
I have control.
All right, good.
Thank you, Carlos.
Please go ahead with the Northwest Passage. So now we travel all the way north to colder climates. Tim, all yours.
Yes. Hello, coming to you live from Stockholm today, where it's a more civilized time of day. And I'm going to take you on another socially distant voyage through the Northwest Passage in 10 minutes, apparently, which is a bit of a challenge because it normally takes a month, but we'll try our best. And I'll try and give you some of the highlights that you might expect to see should you choose to go to the Northwest Passage, and also some of the key considerations in terms of planning how it would fit into your deployment. But we're going to talk about the Antarctic later in this session. The key difference between the Antarctic and the Arctic is that the Antarctic is a continent surrounded by oceans, requiring a big open ocean sea voyage to get there, whereas the Arctic is this ocean surrounded by continents, and it has these wonderful passages and protected waterways once you're up in the high Arctic. So it's a very different environment, but there are still some similarities. And of course, the Northwest Passage and its eastern counterpart, the Northeast Passage, were sought after routes, shortcuts across the top of the world between the Atlantic and the Pacific for trade, and only first completed both by Scandinavian explorers around the turn of the century. So it's only relatively recently that vessels have been making complete transits. And even more recently, that the first yachts made their way into the waters of the Northwest Passage. I think it's important to credit Itasca, this tug conversion that did the first complete transit of the Northwest Passage in 1994. And she was only the 50th vessel ever to make a full Northwest Passage transit. It's pretty remarkable, really. Since then, others have been back. Turmoil has made a few voyages, both as Turmoil, Dion Sky, and as Pioneer. Some yachts have been through more than once. Octopus went through in 2010 and 2012, and Latitude went through in both directions in consecutive seasons in 2014 and 2015. And some of these yachts have realized that the Northwest Passage, as well as being a really exciting place, is actually quite a convenient way to get quickly from ocean to ocean, avoiding the Panama Canal. If it's the right time of year and you want to quickly nip from Atlantic to Pacific or vice versa, this is a way to do so. It's not just motor yachts that have made the voyage, and not just expedition yachts. Some sailing yachts have done so as well. Rose Hearty has been up to the Canadian Arctic several times and will return. And the most recent yacht to complete a full Northwest Passage voyage was actually at the end of 2019 season. It was Camastita, a beautiful classic sailing yacht, made her way through. And she's the last yacht to do the Northwest Passage, because this year, 2020, there have been no transits of the Northwest Passage because the entire Canadian Arctic has been closed due to the pandemic. But we're hopeful that by next season, things will be back to normal and yachts will once again be welcome. So it's a pretty epic voyage. As I said, it takes about a month to do the whole thing. It's 4,000 miles pretty much from ocean to ocean. But some yachts choose not to do the whole voyage. They break off a chunk of it and choose to go for one section, and you can set up guest voyages of about a week to 10 days. But if you want to do the whole voyage, which is really worthwhile to see the contrast and to say you've done it, then it takes about a month. As you can see, the season is dictated by the ice, and the shipping season in the Canadian Arctic is relatively short. This little animation will hopefully play and show you how the ice evolves in the Arctic, in the Canadian Arctic and Greenland. And during the spring, the ice is receding, breaking up. The channels between the islands are opening, and the Northwest Passage itself becomes navigable in August. So it's quite a short season between July for the eastern end of the passage through to about the middle of September. And by the end of September, about this time of year, autumn is really setting in and the water can start to refreeze again. So the shipping season, the season to make this voyage, is relatively short. And the midsection is where the crunch is, because you need to get between these islands. And as you can see, there's a lot of ice between them. That's drifting down from the North Pole and the polar pack, which is only 1,000 miles to the North Pole. But that's the route. And if we zoom in on that central section, just to give you an idea of the ice and how it varies from season to season, this is August 9th in 2013. And you can see quite a different situation to another clear sky satellite image, which was from 2016. Hopefully it's going to appear in a moment. There you go. Quite a difference between the conditions in those years on the same date. So that's why a certain amount of flexibility is required in your timing for this voyage. But typically the time to be in the midsection is the end of August. That works quite well for a deployment planning for your vessel, in that it puts you in the summertime, high summer. It can be either in the North Atlantic, wonderful cruising, the British Isles, Iceland, Greenland, and the Canadian Maritimes, or if you're coming the other way, Alaska, British Columbia, or Kamchatka could be done before a Northwest Passage voyage. And then in the fall, when you emerge in September from the other end, then it's probably time to head south, but even so, Labrador and British Columbia in particular, and Kamchatka are wonderful places to visit in the late summer and early autumn. So it does fit quite well when you're thinking about the annual deployment of your vessel. Why would you go? I mean, it's as I said, an epic voyage to make. You're sailing through the ice, and the landscapes are absolutely mind-blowing. Seeing a yacht in this environment, you're far, far away from everyone else, which is a nice thing at this time. But a yacht in this landscape, dwarfed by the size of the mountains and the glaciers here on the Devon Island, And as I said, the landscapes are simply stunning. This is Baffin Island coast, and Devon Island again, glaciers, and amazing geology. And experiencing this on a yacht, which has a helicopter, is extra special because being able to get up into the higher altitudes and look down on the landscape is fantastic. Obviously being able to look down on the glaciers and the mountains and be able to make landings as well, far inland and on high points. Here's looking down on the raised beach landscape, some of the more subtle landscapes of the Western Passage, with a dusting of snow in September. And you can land right up on top and get some wonderful mountain landings as well if you're fortunate enough to have a helicopter. Also very useful for ice reconnaissance, to check the conditions ahead if you do have a helicopter on board, and also useful for wildlife spotting. Here are some beluga whales spotted from the air in front of a glacier. If you zoom in, you can see that these white whales are very distinctive when they're seen from the air. Another whale that's hard to spot is the mythical narwhal, the unicorn of the sea that has this long tusk. Really hard to see from sea level, but once you get up in the air, you can look down and see them relatively easily. From the sea, you just see this little mottled back, and if you're very lucky, you see a tusk break the surface. But once we're there, we are exploring a lot in the tenders, looking for wildlife on the ice, and cruising along these amazing bird cliffs. The sky can be thick with breeding seabirds at this time of year because everything's happening during the polar summer, long days, 24-hour daylight in high summer, and all the wildlife at its absolute peak. But once we get into the ice, this is where we go on a bit of a safari, really. It's searching the ice, not only for a way through to get where we want to go, but also looking for wildlife on the ice, looking for seals and walrus, which are nice conspicuous dark blobs on the ice, but also for polar bears, of course. And every ice floe you pass might have a polar bear sitting on top of it. They're incredibly hard to spot, but we search and search with telescopes and binoculars to find them. And this is the situation we hope for. Here's a yacht that's managed to quietly maneuver up to an ice floe, and there's the crew looking out at the bear on the ice. Something just happened to my screen, but it's still working. There we go. A nice polar bear family on an ice floe. And sometimes the bears even wave hello. And sometimes they get curious and they actually swim out to the yacht. So it's great to be in the realm of the polar bear and to see these magnificent creatures in their natural habitat up close. We also find them ashore, which means when we go ashore and do walks on the tundra, we need to take that very seriously. All of your guides would be carrying a firearm and bear deterrents to make sure that you stay safe while walking ashore. But the hiking is absolutely fantastic, big open spaces to experience. And of course, the historical remains, both of the people that lived there before and still do, the Inuit. This is in Inukshuk, and their descendants, the Thule people that lived here in this incredibly harsh environment 1,000 years ago. Here are some 1,000-year-old houses which would have had whale bones making a roof, which can still be seen today. So fascinating archaeology, also the history of exploration. Some remains here on Beechey Island from the Franklin expedition, which of course unsuccessfully tried to find a route through the Northwest Passage and failed rather spectacularly. But it's been one of the great stories of Arctic exploration, a very tragic story, some graves of the crew members here on Beechey Island. But experiencing this history and seeing these historical sites is part of the experience. Wherever there's a good anchorage, you can find yourself discovering some buildings. These are remains from a Hudson's Bay Company outpost, a trading company that was established to trade furs about 100 years ago. And these buildings are still standing wonderfully photogenic. We also visit the communities of the north, the Inuit communities. This one, such as Pond Inlet, in a very scenic spot at the top northern end of Baffin Island. About 1,000 people live here. So we can visit these Inuit communities in a normal year, obviously not this year because they're particularly vulnerable to COVID. But once we're welcome to visit again, we can go to Pond Inlet and other small communities where we get a really wonderful welcome from the locals, experience the culture, see day-to-day life, which is pretty busy in the high Arctic. People zipping around on quad bikes in the summertime, hunters out hunting for the winter, and of course experiencing the culture. And anytime you land at a small Arctic community, the kids come down and meet the boats, and it's really, really fun on the beach. These northern communities are also logistical hubs for bringing in provisions, bringing in guests if you're changing a guest during the voyage. Quite challenging because there's not a single asphalt runway north of the Arctic Circle in the Canadian Arctic. They're all gravel and mostly short runways. But we can arrange charter flights with gravel-capable aircraft from the southern hubs, normally places like Iqaluit on Baffin Island or Yellowknife in the Northwest Territories. Bring a jet in there, and then a small turboprop that can land on the gravel strips further north. Means that it can it's relatively straightforward to transfer people and provisions to and from the yacht. And even beyond that, in terms of the aviation aspect, the Canadian Arctic is very well served with a network of hubs for twin otters, which can land just about anywhere. On these tundra tires, they can actually land on the beach. So we can get people and provisions pretty much wherever they need to go. And EYOS, when we're in the high Arctic, we are working as basically as yacht agents, planning the voyage, making sure that the yacht is properly prepared to visit this place. That obviously some serious preparation is required for a voyage such as this in terms of preparing the crew and the vessel, and also providing an ice pilot and guides for the voyage to make sure that the group gets the absolute best from the experience and stays safe while they're there. So it really is a memorable voyage. Only 314 vessels to date have done the full transit, and so it's a special voyage to make if we go the merchant voyage. Late season, you might even see.
Tim, we've lost your sound a bit.
Oh, sorry about that.
Just speak again. It's just sounding a bit muffled.
Yeah.
Okay. I'm
that's
back.
better now. Yeah.
Okay. Sorry about that.
Thanks.
Yeah. So I'm not sure where you lost me, but I was saying what an amazing voyage it is to make for any super yacht. Only 314 vessels, not yachts, vessels to date have made a full ocean-to-ocean transit. So it's a rare opportunity for true exploration, true wilderness, and it's a really exciting voyage. So I hope you'll consider it if you want to go from the Atlantic to the Pacific or vice versa. Thank you.
Perfect. Well, different part of the world, stunning images, and obviously the experience that you bring will make anybody's voyage a lot easier. And I'm always mesmerized by learning about all of these new places that sometimes, or if we're not in the yachting industry, we don't even hear about. And that are actually a great adventure for people of all ages. You know, like polar bears are kids' favorites. And if you want to see polar bears, you have to travel to the Arctic. If you want to see penguins, you have to travel down south to Patagonia and to Antarctica. So that's where we'll go next. And Patagonia and Antarctica are two separate continents, but they go well together because they are far away from Europe or from the United States, from South Florida or the Caribbean. But then again, they're not that far away because to make it down to Patagonia, to Puerto Montt, which is the northern gateway to Patagonia, is the same distance as from Miami to Monaco. So to tell you a little bit about us, Sasis, as Lorna said, we are super yacht agents and we provide full concierge services for yachts that come our way. And we specialize, we're based in Chile, and we serve Peru, Argentina, Uruguay, obviously Chile. And with that, then Patagonia, and we help with the logistics in Antarctica. Of course, Antarctica is not a country, it's a territory. And Captains of Patagonia is a website that we have created that is intended to educate about Patagonia and Antarctica. There's a lot of interesting information, very mystical place to visit with a lot of history. Now, this year, we actually, in October, we're celebrating the 500th year of the discovery of the Magallanes Strait. And then Patagonia Antarctica Yacht Charters is a fairly new company that we created, seeing that there's a need for a smaller local charters based out of Chile. And so we do that as well. But let's get to Patagonia first, then we'll move on to Antarctica, where Rob will also take us on a trip there. So if you're thinking of going down the west coast of South America, if you're in the Caribbean or you're in South Florida, there's a lot to see before you even get to Patagonia. If you come from the Caribbean Sea, and you want to get in the Spanish mood, you have Cuba, you have Panama, you have Costa Rica also, then you have Galapagos. And from there, instead of going southwest towards the Western Pacific, you could make a sharp left turn and visit Peru with the beginning of the Amazon, Machu Picchu. Then you can visit the rest of Chile, as we call it, from Arica all the way to Puerto Montt. And then you would get to Puerto Montt, which, as I mentioned, is the northern gateway to Patagonia. You can go all the way down to Cape Horn, and then you could make the crossing of approximately 500 miles over the Drake Passage to Antarctica. So a yacht can spend a lot of time in this area. You can easily spend 6 months here. And the best time to visit Patagonia is November through April, and Antarctica is December, January, and February. So you can plan accordingly. So for our purpose, in the case of Patagonia, we divide Patagonia into 3 different areas because it's just so vast. It's all navigation and fjords. To give you an idea, Chile, the length of Chile is basically stretches from Northern Africa all the way to Scandinavia. And Patagonia is 1,000 nautical miles by air. So there's a lot of cruising you can do there. And there's sometimes misconception about what Patagonia is. People usually connect it with a clothing line, I say, or they think that they think of pampas and gauchos. But that's because of the geography. Is that the Argentinian side has the roads. The Chilean side is mostly islands, fjords, and we're separated by the Andes Mountains. So the Chilean Patagonia is what's interesting for us from a navigation point of view, from a cruising point of view, and it's mostly accessible only by sea. As you can see in the satellite image, also the landscapes are quite different, with the Chilean side being a lot greener and the Argentinian side being more desert-like. So then within Patagonia, as I mentioned, we divided in 3. Each of these is about 400 miles in length. And we have Northern Patagonia, which is the more populated area. We have Central Patagonia, which is the least populated. And then we have Southern Patagonia, which has some very different type of landscapes. And you have the city of Punta Arenas, which is very important for all the Antarctica logistics. And we have Puerto Williams, which is an alternative to Ushuaia. And of course, the mythical Cape Horn. So let me take you on a quick trip to first Northern Patagonia. This is what a typical cruise could look like. These are several areas that can be visited in a 7, 10, or 14-day itinerary. We usually plan itineraries at an average speed of 10 miles. So that gives us, more time to see these places. And you would start in Puerto Montt, which has an airport, and you would end up in Puerto Chacabuco, which has the airport of Balmaceda right next to it. So very accessible. These are commercial airports. So our first, let's assume we're gonna navigate from north to south. So the first arrival spot will be Puerto Montt. Puerto Montt itself is amazing. It's a very nice area for yachts to wait, for the yachts to arrive into Chile, and for the cruise to explore the area around it. There's some amazing things that you can do. Chile is a playground for outdoor activities and also great foods. So there's a lot of activities that can be done there before any trip for the crew, and of course for guests if they also want to extend the visit. From there, you would travel over to the Chiloé Island. Chiloé Island is very interesting because this was as far south as Christianity got. There's a total of 21 churches. They're all made out of wood and with not any nails holding them together. They're interlocking pieces of wood. And this is a World Heritage Site, so it's very interesting to visit. You have some beautiful national parks there. These huge leaves are called nalcas, and you can actually then make a curanto, which is a hole in the ground, and they use these leaves to cover it. And it's seafood combined with meats. It's a very typical dish there. And you will always be cruising along the ocean with the Andes and a whole range of volcanoes in the background. From there, you would move back towards the mainland. This is the Pumalin National Park. This was actually first created by Douglas Tompkins. And it grew to become a huge, huge property, which is a national park. And here you can do a ton of outdoor activities from fly fishing, kayaking. You can go heli skiing. To have a helicopter when you visit Patagonia, similar to when you visit the Arctic, because of its remoteness, it opens a whole new set of things that you can do if you have a helicopter. But you can also charter one there, or even without a helicopter, the experiences are amazing. Amazing waterfalls, and you navigate through all of these little fjords, which are actually very safe, very deep. So navigation is very safe in Patagonia, and all of it. From there, you would go down to Raúl Marín Balmaceda, which is a very interesting spot. And this is where you have a double-headed volcano, where we often take guests to do heli skiing or heli boarding. And there's a small airstrip here, and each location has its own set of things that you can do there when you visit. From there, you would go and visit one of the villages, very remote on an island, Puerto Aguirre, and you would get a flavor of what Patagonian life is like for people, fishermen that live there. They're very happy to see visitors coming there, and it's quite an experience to see how people live there. From there, you would go to this beautiful spot, which is actually a resort and spa, but it's by this town of Puyuhuapi, and the yachts would usually anchor right here, and it's a beautiful place to visit. This resort is only reachable by boat, so you have some great trails. You can do kayaking, and you have some amazing hiking that you can do in the Patagonian jungle, which is very safe. By the way, in Chile, we don't have any dangerous animals. There's no snakes, nothing that endangers you. So you can go on very safe hikes. From there, you can also visit the Quaynote National Park, which is the first glacier that you will see if you're in a yacht. This is actually a hanging glacier versus a tidal glacier that reaches all the way to the ocean. So this is quite an amazing sight to see, and you can walk all the way to the glacier. From there, you would go south and visit the San Rafael Glacier. San Rafael Glacier is the northernmost glacier in South America, the tidal glacier, and it's quite amazing to be there. It's quite steep, the bed of the glacier, so you have a lot of ice calving. It's in a huge wall of about 80 meters, and you can get fairly close to it. You have to be careful. And from there, you would go to Puerto Chacabuco, which would be your disembarking spot. And if you're there and you want to extend your Patagonia trip a little bit, there's also some amazing, beautiful Patagonian lodges. It's very secluded that you can reach often only by helicopter. And they give you a great chance to experience the land side of Patagonia a little bit more. From there, we move to central Patagonia, which the itinerary, if we go north to south again, would take you from Caleta Tortell to the Torres del Paine National Park. There's an airport. You would use the Balmaceda Airport, and you can use the Puerto Natales Airport on your way out. This is the southern ice field, which is the biggest ice field in the world besides Antarctica and Greenland. So it's very, very big, and there's a lot of glaciers here, so you can navigate and visit some of these glaciers here. So this is Caleta Tortell, which is a very beautiful little town. And the interesting thing about it is that there's no roads in the town. It's all accessible by walkways. The Beagle River is very close by, which is the river that carries the most water in Chile. So there's some very good whitewater rafting there, and also some great fishing or kayaking that you can do there. This is Caleta Tortell on a quiet morning. And then as you leave Caleta Tortell, you can visit some of the glaciers, as I mentioned. The earlier you go, the more ice you're gonna have. If you go in February, March, it is mostly ice-free. So when you go and what type of vessel you have is important, but it's all in general very safe navigation. When you get close to these glaciers, you can also do some glacier walking. You can even do some paddle boarding or kayaking close to the glacier. Then you would get to Port Eden, which is actually a little town that was established as a landing place for the mail airplane back in the 1930s. And Indians were settled here as well, the last of the Alacalufe Indians, which Patagonia was inhabited by mostly 3 bigger tribes, and all very peaceful tribes. Most of them lived off fishing. And here you still have 7 families of those tribes living. You also see a whole network of lighthouses when you travel through Patagonia, because obviously before GPS was there, charts were also being made or drawn. And so there's a big network of lighthouses which help the yachts navigate, or the vessels at the time. Some not so lucky. Some, this has a very interesting story. I'm not going to tell it now, but basically the captain tried to sink the ship, and he didn't manage to do that. He ended up in jail. From there, you would go to the Pio 11, named after the Pope, who actually visited this glacier, also known as the Brigham Glacier. This is the widest glacier in Patagonia, and the face is about 5 miles wide. And as you can see, it's also very tall. And you always have, when you visit these glaciers, this ice calving, glacier calving, which is really a sight to see. You can even anchor there at night, and then at night you will hear these almost like gunshot sounds and the ice coming down. From there you would go to Isla Madre de Dios, Mother of God Island, which is very interesting and actually fairly recently discovered. It's a limestone island with a network of caves, and they found bone whales, they found drawings. So this is where the Alacalufe Indians used to live and find protection. So it's quite interesting to visit as well. It's being researched by actually a French-Chilean group, and every year they're finding new things. From there, you would arrive in Puerto Natales, and one thing that is always very yummy to have is a Patagonian lamb that we do in a slow way. This is a long ceremony, and you can enjoy some Chilean wines while you wait for this. And Puerto Natales is the gateway to the Torres del Paine National Park, probably the best known national park in Chile. It's a beautiful park that allows you to do many things. You have some amazing wildlife all over Patagonia, but here you see it firsthand. You have these century-old estancias where a lot of Yugoslavs settled, and they brought they specialized in sheep. So that's where all the lamb comes from. There's some caves and some fossils that they have found. So there's really things to do here for all ages and all people of all interests. Some amazing photography, ice walking, mountain biking, kayaking, fly fishing, of course, all over Patagonia. You can horseback riding. So it really gives you can easily spend 2-3 days at this park alone and have a really amazing experience. There's climbing, hiking, and so on. This is one of the assignments that you can catch there. You can do some ice walking and also do some puma tracking. These pumas are usually not dangerous. You would do it obviously with a guide, and it's quite an experience to see these pumas. From there, we could do the southern Patagonia itinerary, which then would also start if we go southbound from Puerto Natales. Sometimes we have this route being done northbound because some yachts arrive from the Atlantic side and they would arrive in Punta Arenas or in Puerto Williams, and then you would do it the reverse. You get out to the ocean a little bit here, but it's all very safe navigation. As you leave Puerto Natales, the Torres del Paine, you would visit a beautiful 60-mile-long fjord, which is flanked by mountains with waterfalls and glaciers called Fjord de las Montañas, the Mountains Fjord. From there, you would visit Carlos III Island, which is very known for its whale population that comes during the summer. And you have usually anywhere between 100 to 150 whales with their calves that come and stay there, and it's a guaranteed whale spotting area. You will see whales as you cruise. Again, as I mentioned, there's a network of lighthouses that you can visit. This is one of the bigger ones called San Ysidro Lighthouse. It's also next to an old whaling station that now is almost destroyed. You can visit the southernmost cross on the American continent, and of course you can always do kayaking, and you will always be seeing these toninas, these dolphins, which are there. As you move to a more remote area, you can visit the Almirantazgo Fjord. This is a quite remote area, but here the wildlife, the sights are really worthwhile seeing. Here at this spot, you have this river where you can do fly fishing, and even people that have never caught a fish are pretty much guaranteed to catch a fish there. So, and you start seeing the first bigger penguin colonies as well, mostly Humboldt or Magellanic penguins. From there, you could go to Caleta Escandallo, which is this little bay here, and this is the Monte Sarmiento. It's the biggest, the tallest mountain in the Darwin Range, and this allows you to go heli skiing there. So this is one of the heli skiing spots there as well. From there, we would move to Glacier Alley and the Beagle Channel. And there's, we call it Glacier Alley because there's one glacier after the other. You can visit all of these. They're all different, so they're all very interesting to visit. This is the Pia Sound, which is a Y-shaped sound. And you can very safely spend the night here in very quiet conditions. And you can do some kayaking. These are huge, huge walls of ice that you can get close to. From there, you could visit the Caruquinca National Park, which is also a huge park, and you can go upriver. This is the last, you can visit the last police station in continental Chile. And again, you have some amazing wildlife, wild horses, colonies of seals. From there, we get to Puerto William, which is the southernmost city in the world, in the Americas. And here you have also some amazing history and hiking, horseback riding. This is actually the Beagle Channel here. This is Puerto Williams, and the yachts can usually stay in this area. Here's where we can do provisioning. There's a runway. So this is a very good spot also if you want to leave towards Antarctica or visit Cape Horn, which is 80 miles from Puerto Williams. And there's a lighthouse here where a family from the Chilean Navy lives once, and they're changed every year. And I imagine that this year they're actually quite lonely because they have not been visited much. They're always very, very grateful to receive visitors. And it's a must stop. You have the monument for all the sailors that have lost their lives in the not so good reputation of the Drake Passage. You can get your passport stamped as well. So I'm not going to go into each one of these, but as you can see, there's a ton of reasons of why you should go to Patagonia. And again, if you are going to Antarctica, you should visit Patagonia and vice versa because they're just so close to each other. And you can really spend a lot of time here. And we have visitors that come to Chile 3 or 4 times and to visit all of these areas. So it's a destination that's actually growing in the last couple of years, and we're there to help anyone that wants to plan and then go there. And with that, we will travel a little bit further south to Antarctica. And Rob, if you want to request. I have just approved you, so hopefully this time it will work better.
Yes. Well, thank you, Carlos. I mean, that is absolutely fantastic and reminiscent of my own homeland, New Zealand. What a dynamic landscape, and really a hard act to follow. But if you're going to follow the scenic grandeur of Patagonia, what better to have in your tool bag than the Antarctic? Antarctica is, widely regarded as the sort of premier destination for any expedition cruise vessel. I mean, it is simply stunning. It's the 7th continent, the last continent, the most remote continent, and by far the most pristine. And it lies at the bottom of our planet, the bottom to anyone from the Northern Hemisphere, at the top to us Antipodeans. But it's a vast area, and people sort of talk generally like I'm going to the Antarctic, and it conjures up a single destination, but it is a continent. And even at its closest point to another continent, which is South America, it's 550 nautical miles across the Drake Passage. Coming from New Zealand or from South Africa, it's even further again. We do take people to several places in the Antarctic, and traveling to the Ross Sea, which is the area south of New Zealand, is a really big commitment. It's it's 1,500 to 2,000 miles, no matter how you slice it. But for those coming down from the Americas, coming down through Patagonia and launching from Cape Horn, you only have a couple of days to get across to this fabled continent. I know I'm talking to a global audience, but just to show the size of the Antarctic continent overlaid on the United States and on Europe, you can see that it's quite a big place indeed. Both Tim and I have done a circumnavigation of the continent, and it took us around 70 days, which is a big commitment of time. But if you allow 10 to 12 days, you can actually have a great visit to the Antarctic Peninsula, which is sort of the area that's shaped like an elephant's trunk. So here's the voyage. This is the full voyage doing everything. So leaving Patagonia, heading out to the Falklands, South Georgia, and then dropping down to tour through the peninsula. That's sort of a 24, 26 day commitment. A shorter version is to sail from South America direct to the peninsula, and then you're looking at a couple of weeks. If you want to shorten that and to avoid the Drake Passage, then the best way is to fly directly from Punta Arenas to King George Island in the Antarctic. It's a lovely 2-hour flight. 98% of our clients choose to fly. We fly across in a 4-engine jet, land on a very small sloping gravel runway. The advantage of that approach is that it allows the yacht to cross the Drake in its own time. So we generally stage the vessel in the sheltered waters of southern South America, and then when we see a weather window coming through, a window of good weather, the yacht will zip across and seek shelter at King George, and then we can fly the owner and guest down to join the yacht down there. Super low stress way of doing it, a minimal risk to the yacht itself. If you do want to sail the Drake, it can be a tough crossing. We don't go out in these conditions in a yacht. We are able to predict the weather 2 or 3 days in advance and find a window which will get you across safely. It's very far south. You're dealing with very high latitudes, and because we're dealing at high latitudes, summer is very short. Summer is defined generally as between December and February, but it really depends on where you're going. If you're going to South Georgia, then there are some advantages in going very early in October because you're going to see some amazing wildlife interactions. The northern part of the peninsula, you're going to have a little bit more leeway than you would further south, and so your season is really December through to March. If you're going to the Ross Sea, your season is incredibly short simply because of the high latitude, and your window is going to be from mid-January to mid-February. And of course, if you're going to the South Pole, it's a very tight time frame there, but well worth the effort. So here's the, for the peninsula, most people are going to see the wildlife. Here's the timetable that the wildlife keep. They don't consult with us. This is how it works every year. The animals are coming ashore in November, December to find a place to hang out for the summer and to get ready for breeding, for hatching. Peak season is January. That's the area of, that's the time of best weather. The ice is starting to recede and the wildlife is in full swing. Late season is in February. Most of the new wildlife, the hatchlings have grown up and are ready to fledge and to take off to sea on their own. The ice is gone, but there's some stunning weather. In March, we call it dead penguins in the dark because really you're starting to push the boundaries. The only penguins that are left are the ones that have succumbed during the summer. Everything's gone back to sea in order to fledge and feed and prepare for the oncoming winter, which is coming closer by the day. So why would you go to the Antarctic? Amazing, amazing wildlife that is so uncaring about humans. It's possible to sit on the beach and have penguins come up and play at your feet. You can follow whales gently in the Zodiac, turn off the engine and have the whales then follow you. So it's an amazing place to see creatures big and small. It's the most pristine continent, so it's extremely quiet. There are utter sounds of silence, as they say, but also when you have some glaciers calving, some absolutely deafening sounds. It is the most scenic place that I've ever been. We've run over 800 trips to the Antarctic. It's still our favourite destination, and that's simply because you can't beat the scenery. Icebergs are a favourite for everyone. They come in every shape and form, and cruising around a Zodiac, either cruising around an iceberg in a Zodiac or in the yacht itself, is something that never gets old, never gets tiring. Great place to sit and contemplate. For a lot of people, it's the first chance in a long while they've had to unplug from the boardroom. To be there with your family, to take it all in, is really good quality time. And there are no distractions. I mean, it's you and nature, that's it. So you can see from these images why it's our favourite destination on Earth. We never get sick of making up new activities to try. I mean, there are some stock favourites which will never grow old. Getting out in the small boats and getting in amongst the icebergs allows you to really appreciate the sense of scale. But it's just as much fun as getting out in the helicopter. We have introduced heli skiing last year. We use helicopters for heli hiking. We use helicopters simply to get up high and enjoy a glass of champagne overlooking the boat. So I would recommend Antarctica as an all-round destination for almost any group. We tailor-make the itinerary to the capabilities of the group, whether they're young or old. Our youngest has been a baby, our oldest has been nearly 100. So there's something there for everyone. You don't need anything at all to make the experience unbelievable. Here we just parked Arctic tea in the ice and everybody got out and we had a crew barbecue. Fantastic fun. We do offer camping for those that want to camp under the midnight sun. Generally at about 3 o'clock in the morning, people realize that it's not going to get dark and they really would like to have a pee. And the yacht is just a few hundred yards away. So they come back to the yacht. But to say you've camped in the Antarctic is real bragging rights. Kayaking is no better place to kayak amongst the ice and the wildlife. Diving is possible. We do offer diving and snorkeling. Diving requires a lot of kit and a little bit of extra training. But once you're below the waterline, the colours are unbelievable. The vibrant colours of the seafloor in the Antarctic through all the soft corals and sponges and stars are something really special. For those like me that are too old to be that cold for long, a vessel equipped with a submersible, and a couple of our vessels are, give you the opportunity to experience life underwater without getting cold. Of course, for the real he-men like Carlos, who needs a submarine, just jump on in. This is a rite of passage. This is the Polar Plunge. All the gentlemen get free membership into the Little Blue Acorn Club, and you'll feel tingly and alive for the rest of the day. So what do we do to get you ready? Well, really it's about sitting down with the captain and the owner and understanding what it is that people are interested in. We customize the itinerary for every voyage, partly informed by the owner's desires, but also informed by the captain's comfort level and the engineer's input into the capability of the vessel. We're trying to maximize the opportunity for everybody on board while staying within the design and operating parameters of the yacht. We take care of all the permits and permissions. We run through an inspection process with the vessel. We don't actually call it inspection because it freaks people out, but it's sitting down with the captain, the chief engineer and the chief steward and going through the vessel and carefully considering what we need to do to prepare the vessel for polar cruising. And it's a one-shot deal. So, you know, once you've done it for the Antarctic, that covers you for heading up to the Arctic, which is often a very logical progression after an Antarctic season. We provide full advice and support because people have 1,001 questions, which is wonderful. So they're better prepared before they go. We help with providing all the equipment. And then, of course, we usually supplement the onboard team with a nice pilot and an expedition guide so that we can take care of everything ashore. If you're thinking about going to the Antarctic, then it's all about the timing. I mean, I'm happy to talk to anyone about the timing of your trip. It's about the logistics, and that's really around the endurance of your vessel in terms of her fuel capacity and provisions. We provide air support to fly guests in and out and provisions in and garbage out so that it can extend the charter season for any vessel. As I said, we take care of permits, we take care of the technical preparation, and we provide a team. I mean, I think...
Excuse me, sorry, Carlos, Rob, Tim,
Yeah.
we've got about another minute, actually. We're out of time.
Okay.
Yes, I believe this is the last slide, Rob.
Yes, thank you. Sorry to interrupt.
No,
Yeah,
that's fine.
Just to say that we can take a vessel of any capability to the Antarctic. We just customize the itinerary to the capabilities of the vessel. We're extremely excited that 2 of our Sea Explorers have launched this year. And of course, they won't have to make any compromises because they've been designed specifically for this destination. But the next generation of expedition yachts are really going to set the world on fire. That's it.
Excellent, thank you.
All right.
Well, look, guys, yeah, Carlos, do you just want to wind up quickly because we really have run out of time. We need to go into our break now. So I'll hand over to you. Yeah.
Yeah, very quickly, I just want to thank Rob, Tim, you and the audience for going on this journey with us. If you need to contact us, here's our information or through Lorna. And with that, I have not been able to look at the screen to see if there have been any questions. But we are out of time. You can contact us if you have any specific questions. And Lorna, I don't know if you saw any questions that need to be answered.
I think one of them was actually answered in the chat by Tim anyway. And we had another one from Nick China about the number of visiting yachts to Papua New Guinea.
I will answer that.
Yeah. Oh, you've answered it. Okay, excellent. So that's it. So, well, look, Carlos, Tim and Rob, thank you so much. That was an excellent presentation. And if anything is going to give you the wanderlust when we can get back out there traveling, I think that will do it. So thank you for those fabulous talks and great photos. So I think, Carlos, we're going to hear from you later. Rob and Tim, if you can, please join the audience and remain for the rest of the conference. Thank you very much indeed. Great presentations.
Great.
Thank you.
Well, thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you. Sorry we had to go over it so quickly.
No problem. So we're now going to go into a short break, but before we do that, I'm just going to sum up the results from the last poll. Thank you very much for those of you that gave us your feedback. We basically asked about the Antarctica. Will it be the hot super yacht destination of the future? Do you agree or disagree? So we actually had, interestingly, I don't know if it was influenced by the presentation, but 51% of respondents said yes, they strongly agree that owners and charterers want new experiences, and therefore Antarctica would be a hot destination for the future. We had a further 31% who agreed somewhat, but indicated that there were other exciting destinations. We did have some people going for, if I may call it, the more traditional options. 6% said they disagree, nothing